May the words of my mouth and the thoughts of our hearts be guided by God, our Father, Jesus Saviour, and the Sacred Spirit. Welcome to our second COVID Sunday, and thank you for all the positive feedback on last week's service. This week, I'm following on from last week's sermon on Psalm 23 and talking about Psalm 121. Now, I know it's not one of the set readings, but as I said last week, I want to focus on some Psalms. And as I've read more about this beautiful Psalm, I've realized just how appropriate it is for us in our setting today. I chose this Psalm because it's one of my favorites and because I've always thought of it as a call for help. It starts, where does my help come from? But as I've researched it for this sermon, I've discovered something really interesting. You might have noticed this. Did you notice that the psalm starts about being about me? I lift up my eyes to the hills. But by verse 3, it has become about you. He will not let your foot slip. He who watches over you will not sleep. And the rest of the psalm is all about he who watches over you. So what's going on there? Well, what's going on, at least according to a number of the commentators that I've read, is that this is a liturgical prayer for pilgrims. But in order to explain that, I need to back up a little bit. So, Psalm 121 is the second of the 15 songs of ascent, Psalms 120 to 134. And those psalms were intended to be said as pilgrims climbed the steep roads up to Jerusalem. I vividly remember as Leslie and I travelled by public bus from Tel Aviv Airport to Jerusalem that an Orthodox Jew on the bus was saying prayers, and I think they may have been based on these psalms. That's what they're intended to be used for. Now, the Songs of Ascent are a beautiful set of psalms, which includes some of my favorites. You might want to look up Psalm 133 and 134. Psalm 121 is apparently intended to be used as a liturgy at the beginning of the pilgrimage, and it's written in two parts. The first part is what the pilgrims who are going say, and then the people who are sending them off respond with the rest of the psalm. So it starts with the pilgrims reminding themselves that as they look up the hills, as they look up to Jerusalem, they will remember that God is their help. And then those who are sending them bless them. That's right. Psalm 121 is a blessing for pilgrims. To be a pilgrim in those days was not a small thing. The roads were dangerous places. Remember Jesus' story of the Good Samaritan. And the Psalms were likely written at a time of warfare between Jews and other nations around them, like the Philistines. And the Babylonians and Egyptians were there. So to make a pilgrimage was not something you did lightly. You were taking your life in your hands. Sending pilgrims from your village or town out on the road to Jerusalem might just mean you didn't see them again. So you really did want God to watch over them day and night, going out and coming back. A long, long time ago, before COVID was really a thing in Canada, at the beginning of Lent, we started with something of a theme of being on a pilgrimage through Lent to Easter. Well, it now looks like we're on a pilgrimage together through this COVID crisis. There will be ups and downs, moments of challenge and moments of laughter. And what we need on this pilgrimage is to know that God is with us. And that is exactly what this psalm is, a prayer, God is with us. Or more specifically, a prayer for others, for those we care for, that God is with them. He will not let your foot slip. He who watches over you will never sleep. He who watches over Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is watching over you. The Lord will be your shadow, so that the sun does not hurt you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord keep you from harm. The Lord watch over your soul. The Lord watch over your going out on your journey and your returning home, today and always. What a wonderful prayer for those we love, especially as we are separated from them. A prayer for our parents and children, for our friends and family, for those we love. Just as those who sent the pilgrims off on their journey to Jerusalem were separated, so we are separated. Just as they went through a challenging journey, so we are going through a challenging journey. Just as they trusted their loved ones into God's hands, so we trust our loved ones into God's hands. And as I've spent time learning this psalm this week, I found it both a good reminder and a great comfort. A reminder because of the first two verses. I lift up my eyes to the hills. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord. Yep. And a comfort because it gives me words I can use to trust my loved ones, my mum, my brothers, my in-laws, into God's hands. I hope you too may use it and find it a comfort on the pilgrimage we are walking together. So let me pray this prayer of blessing for you. He will not let your foot slip. He who watches over you will never sleep. He who watches over Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is watching over you. The Lord will be your shadow at your right hand, so that the sun does not hurt you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord keep you from harm. The Lord watch over your soul. The Lord watch over your going out and your coming home, today and always. Amen.